Hello, and welcome to Real Person Reviews. I'm Sam, and I'm a real person, and today I want to talk to you about Pokemon Let's Go Eevee for the Nintendo Switch. Because I have a Switch. This review is going to be interesting. And you can check out the written one before, after, or instead of the video one in the description below. But because Let's Go Eevee is basically based on Pokemon Yellow, I am probably going to be foregoing a lot of explanation and assume you already know about Gen 1 Pokemon games, or you're going to check out my review of Pokemon Yellow. Otherwise, or Pokemon Blue or something. I'm going to assume you'll know a lot of stuff about Pokemon before jumping into this, so I don't waste too much of your damn time, and only most of it, with the review. And also, full disclosure, I did not catch every single Pokemon in the game. I just caught as many as I pretty much could, and beat the main story. I also didn't do the entirety of the post-game, because it's pretty repetitive stuff, so that's just disclosure. It's not 100% completed. I just actually beat the game. So, do with that what you will with that, and let's get to the gosh dang to review. So, Pokemon Let's Go Eevee is Gen 1 Pokemon games again. It's the same kind of thing where you start off on your adventure, you get a starter Pokemon, and then you go off and you catch more Pokemon, and you're trying to catch as many Pokemon as you can and beat the gym leaders. You get the 8 gym badges, go to the Pokemon League, beat the Elite Four, and become the Pokemon League champion. Be the strongest trainer you can possibly be. That pretty much has remained unchanged. In here, you actually start with Eevee as your starter. Unlike Yellow or even Let's Go Pikachu, the other companion game, is that where you start with Pikachu, here you start with Eevee. And there are a lot of more modern tweaks to this, a lot of things that I guess if you're a Pokemon fan, you'll be familiar with them, and if you're not, they may be a bit new. They've added in lots of different typings, things like, they've accounted for things like the Dark type, the Steel type, the Fairy type. All that has been factored in. They have a lot of these new moves that came out later, and a lot of the movesets are a bit different. You'll generally learn more moves as you level up, and they just have more moves in their movesets than they did originally. There's also, for catching Pokemon, the areas where you're catching them, there's different Pokemon in like slightly different Pokemon in different areas. And usually just there's more types of Pokemon in every area for the most part. So only a few have really totally moved to different places. For example, there's no Safari Zone really this time around, so some of those Safari Zone Pokemon have to spawn in other locations. But battling is pretty much the same as it always was. Similar stuff. The main difference being that you can take different Pokemon, like outside of battle, you can have different Pokemon come out of their Pokeball and they'll like follow you along. Or sometimes some of them will let you ride on them, depending on their size and what Pokemon they are and whatnot. Which can affect some of your speed and how you're moving and such. But if you have them out there and they become friendly to you, they'll do things like shake off status conditions or land critical hits or survive fatal blows during the battle. Kind of like a friend, like some of this stuff we've seen for a little while in Pokemon now, for a few years. But that's the thing that's put into this game as well. And for altering stats now, instead of altering them with some of like the, like carbos and iron and protein and whatever, it's usually just in the form of a candy, like a smart candy or like a tough candy, or it's just different ones that these candies just up your stats that way. Usually you get candies from catching Pokemon, and that's the biggest change, I think, is catching Pokemon in this game. First of all, you'll notice when you're walking in the wild, in a grassy area or a cave or wherever Pokemon may be. Instead of just like walking around and having a battle happen, Pokemon will actually appear and they'll be walking around on the overworld. And so you can see what Pokemon they are, and if you run into them, then you'll be in an encounter with them, but you can also sidestep them if you'd like. When you're in the encounter, they're usually doing some kind of animations, maybe moving around a bit. You don't actually fight them, you just try to catch them. You do that by throwing Pokeballs. If you're playing with Joy-Cons, you have to flick the Joy-Con to like throw the ball. Or if you're playing in handheld mode, you just tilt the device around to aim it and hit a button to throw it. And that's probably the biggest change is, doing that. You get some like different like berries and like food things you can throw at them to make them move around less, or just make them easier to catch once the ball hits them, or just so you can get more rewards for catching them, because sometimes they'll give you different like berries or candies or something when you catch them, and just give you extra stuff if you use that. You also get some experience when you catch them. All of your Pokemon do. In fact, when you're battling as well, it's just basically like you have an experience all on all the time that you can't turn off, so you constantly get those. And at certain points in the game, to get certain things, you will need to catch a certain amount of Pokemon as well. And usually by beating trainers, instead of just getting money, you also will get Pokeballs a lot of the time as well, so that it just encourages you to go and catch more Pokemon. Also, most of the gyms, while similar to the original games, some of them have been redesigned a bit. Like Erica's gym is now like a hedge maze instead of just being kind of like there's just bushes in it. And pretty much every gym requires you to do something, like either catching so many Pokemon or having a Pokemon of a certain level or certain type or something. Usually there's some little requirement you'll have to do to be like, before you do this gym, do you have this? And you have to kind of present that before moving forward. Other changes are that this game is kind of a I'm unsure where it's supposed to fall timeline wise, canon wise, because it seems like basically because there's a rival that goes around you have throughout the game. It's kind of like a friendly rival kind of person, and what happens basically most of the time is that that rival will go and like bat you and go to most of the same places and whatnot. It's I don't know, but it's weird because also Blue is in the game, who is supposed to be the rival from the original games, and so it's kind of I guess I'm unclear of where that falls into place with that, because there's a rival and there's also the one that was the original rival, and because of the events that are happening, I guess I'm not exactly sure where in the timeline that falls. So that's a bit different, that they have both those two different characters. So that's a thing. And I mean, I think those are, for the most part, the differences for that, catching them. And also, if you're used to newer Pokemon games, there aren't any Pokemon abilities. There are Mega Evolutions, but they don't come until late in the game. And also another change is that in the post-game, when you beat the game, what it unlocks is an extra part where now there are these master trainers where they only train one Pokemon, and so you have to fight them with that same Pokemon. Usually it's a pretty high level too, but so the idea is that either have to have one that's higher level or better stats or has better moves or some combination of those things in order to beat them. And if you do that, you'll get the title of whatever the Pokemon is you both had to use, Master. Like, oh, I beat that Caterpie with my Caterpie. I'm a Caterpie Master. And then you get all those and you get the title of Grandmaster. But I didn't do all that. I just looked that up. There's also online trading and battling, and there's that component here. And also there are some trainers every now and then you'll find that will trade you. They want to trade you the same Pokemon. And if you trade them, they'll give you the Alolan form, which is the ones you would find in Pokemon Sun and Moon. They'll have that form of the Pokemon that you can get. by doing those trades. And like I said, there's no Safari Zone, and there's also no... Like, there is the Rocket Game Corner still there, but you can't do any of the games in the Rocket Game Corner. Those are most of the changes, though. Other stuff was probably more nitpicky, but those are like the more major ones that I noticed. And there's a lot of good in. Oh, like the other change, I guess a quick mention also is that even though I didn't use it, but it was like a Pokemon Go park. It's just connect you to Pokemon Go and swap Pokemon between the two games that way. But I don't play Pokemon Go, so I didn't use it. So that's why I almost forgot about it. And there's a lot of good things about this game. Like, it looks nice. I mean, it's a pretty looking game because it's on the Switch, and they, cleaned it up quite a bit since the last time we saw it on the Game Boy Advance. But like that's cool. Oh shit! Another change. I just remembered this now. There aren't HMs in this game. There aren't any of those. TMs are reusable like they usually are and have been in Pokemon games for a while. But instead of HMs, you get partner moves. So your main partner Pokemon in this game, which would be Eevee, learns all of those moves, and you can just use them whenever. So you don't have to take up any move slots for them. And Eevee is able to do all of them because it's a special Eevee. And there's also a store you can go to in Celadon that sells attire. A lot of other characters will give you some attire as well, but you can get clothes for yourself and for your Eevee and kind of customize your outfit and whatnot a little bit and customize what Eevee is wearing. But now I think I've hit everything until I remember something later. Check out the written review, really do. But no, there's a lot to like. Like I said, it looks great. It looks really pretty. Like, some of the animations are pretty cool in this too. Really love that seismic toss animation. Just looks fucking awesome where they go up and you can see them like a view from space, and like you see like the Pokemon fly up like from the earth and fly back down. Like, that's like hilarious, and like I love that one. I don't know, it's a pretty game. A lot of convenient stuff, like you just have a Pokemon box on you at all times. You don't have to go to a Pokemon Center to switch out Pokemon. You can just do it on the fly whenever with the entirety of every Pokemon you have. So they're just like always on you all the time. That's cool. And I guess they sell the conveniences of infinite TMs. Having HMs like not be a thing, just have them being these moves that Eevee can just do and aren't like actual moves that take up move slots. Really like that. I really like that solution to getting around the world. That's cool. I didn't care that much about a Pokemon following you, but I guess that could be neat. Some people really like that. I guess I was like, I was kind of whatever. I wouldn't care either way. But I mostly had Beedrill following me the whole time. Because of course I did. And I do really like the way it incentivizes actually capturing Pokemon. It actually makes you feel like, oh yeah, I should do that. Because it's like, I mean, you get experience for it, and that's kind of the only way you can grind, really, is to catch a bunch of Pokemon early on because you can't, just refight trainers or anything. And then, because you have to catch them anyway, it might make you want to chain catch them by catching a bunch in a row, because that increases your chances. It increases your combo, and so you get more experience each time, and also increases the chance of getting a shiny Pokemon. And it also makes you want to catch all these different Pokemon, because you're like, if I have to catch Pokemon anyway, I might as well just try to get as many as I can. And so it does incentivize the I gotta catch them all aspect of it. And also, I kind of think it also helps play into the thing of, like, I really love that they're on the overworld, and so you can just, like, skirt them if you want to. And even if you do run into a Pokemon you don't want to actually catch or interact with, you can just hit run and run away, because it's not like they can force you to stay because you're not battling them or anything. So it's like, you can just run. You will always be able to get away from them. That's cool. Although some of the bigger Pokemon, it's like, if you want to catch some of those more significant ones, you have to fight them first and beat them within a time limit, and then attempt to catch them after that. I don't know. So there's like some cool stuff. Some of the music remixes were good. Jessie is still hot. I like that. There's also the ability to get all the starters is cool. The original starters. I thought it was actually really cool that you could catch them. Like, that was one of the early things. I caught a Bulbasaur in the wild, and I was like, that's just awesome. I just caught a Bulbasaur. I never caught a Bulbasaur before. You do just get them through scripted events as well, so I think that's weird. But it's interesting that you can, like, in certain areas, just catch the starters out in the wild. Like that for some reason, that one was like really cool to me. And I mean, it's just a fun enough romp through something that was really familiar to me, and I thought it was enough of a change of pace without getting too complicated. It didn't feel like it would be like, because I feel like if somebody who hadn't really played many Pokemon games jumped into this, I think they'd still be okay. They'd still be able to figure it out, and it would be less confusing and less annoying. Like, it wouldn't be as overwhelming as probably a more modern Pokemon game. Most of the more modern ones, anyways. So I feel myself appreciating the simplicity of it and a lot of the aspects of it, definitely. I thought it was striking a pretty nice balance between those things. And it was a fun romp through Pokemon yet again. But for downsides, it's annoying that can't really use, like, you can't use just a Pro Controller to play it when you're playing on your TV. You have to use a Joy-Con. I didn't do any co-op, so I don't know what that's even like. I think you just use two Joy-Cons for that. So you have two people attacking and trying to catch Pokemon. But, like, I don't know what that was about. Like, I don't know, like, why couldn't I just use that? So if you wanted to use more standard control style, you'd have to play it in handheld mode. I wasn't really able to pet Eevee in handheld mode for whatever reason. I don't know if that was just glitched out when I was trying to do it or what, but it just was never letting me do it in that mode. It got a little annoying that you couldn't grind also, because catching Pokemon over and over and over again gets frustrating when you're just doing it to level grind. I'd rather just be fighting Pokemon because I like the idea of, like, I'm fighting, I'm using my moves, I'm practicing with them, and I'm trying to get used to what my Pokemon can do, and I'm feeling like I'm growing with my Pokemon when I do that. But while this game is like, hey, catch these Pokemon because you should catch a bunch of different kinds so you can help grind and level up and stuff too, I don't like that. Then that takes away from the experience of building up the whole battle thing, which I'm more into the battling aspect of it than the capturing aspect. So it did feel like it bogged that down, and when I was just trying to level grind, it was a lot of just continuously catching a bunch of Pokemon that I'm not going to use, I'm just going to get rid of them. Yes, I can get a bunch of candies for them by getting rid of them and whatnot, but it's like, I would rather just be able to train the Pokemon I have directly and just move on than try to fiddle with a bunch of these and extra steps that'll take more time than just fighting Pokemon. And is less frustrating because the Pokeball doesn't always go where you want it to go when you're trying to capture stuff. And it's just easier to capture things in handheld mode because you have more control over where you're actually throwing the ball versus, like, trying to use the Joy-Con, which a lot of times can be questionable at best. But, oh well. And they did a little better with the leveling in it too. I also did want to quick mention, I thought it was really cool that the main character, or whatever, not the main character, the rival character, like, gets Cubone. Like, has Cubone follow him as part of the story thing. Like, they built a little, like, scene around that. I thought that was actually kind of cool. So you're like, oh, that's how he got a Pokemon. Like, that was cool that I got to witness that. Rather than him just showing up and being like, I have more Pokemon now. But, there's, like, I don't know, just a lot of times when it was very, like, it was pretty obvious what I was supposed to do next, but the characters were like, they have to tell me anyways. The leveling stuff, like, there's more moves to learn, and, like, they did a better job populating your early levels with learning more moves and faster and getting, like, decent moves. But they also still kind of petered out near the end of the game. They're still, like, you know, you get to, like, level, you know, like 60 or 70, and it's like there's nothing else for the last leg of levels. And you don't really need to level up much more after that because you probably already beat the Elite Four by that point with your levels that high. And the only reason to keep leveling up is to fight all of those Master Trainers. And that also probably would require catching Pokemon that you've already evolved. Because you evolved them to get what you had, and you need the unevolved form to fight these. And then it also means you have to grind their levels up. Which at least you have the Elite Four to grind now, but, you know, unless you want to go shiny hunting to level them up, I don't know. It's It just seems like it's kind of asking for you to grind a lot more with a part that's just not that fun to do. Um, and I'm also still upset that they added in Mega Stones because apparently Pokemon abilities that was too rough. You know, hold items that was too complicated. Both of those are way too much to add in here. But the Mega Evolutions that will totally change your type by using them, we'll just toss those in. Like I feel like they could have left those out, and the game would have really benefited from not having those. I also don't really think they needed the Alolan Pokemon in there either, but like, I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I just don't think they needed to be in there. They don't really add anything other than the Alolan forms, which is like, I don't know. I don't think that was real necessary to put in. And I don't know if it would necessarily appeal to. I don't know. That appeal might be kind of weird. Let's talk about that. You see, Pokemon Let's Go Eevee is a game that's tough to recommend. I enjoyed it quite a bit, but I also got it for like $30. And they usually want you to pay like $60 for this game. And I can't really recommend it for that price. I mean, if you're a big fan of the Gen 1 Pokemon games and you have a Switch now, you might like it, but you also might not like all the new stuff they added to it and the things they changed. I don't know. I also still don't know. Whatever. That's in the written review. We're past that point. Anyways. I was going to mention the weird canon of like, well, if Blue is in here, and then does this take place after the original games, but then Team Rocket is here, and all these events from those are happening again? Did Team Rocket can do the exact same thing twice? Is it during those events? I don't know. Whatever. It's not important. It was just a weird thought. But yeah, this was $30 that I found it. They usually want 60 for it, I think even still, and it's not worth that. I think 30 is probably the price you want to pay. Especially because it was just this. I didn't get the stupid Pokeball controller because I didn't give a shit. And it pretty much only works for this, maybe something else, but mostly this. And if you're a big fan of Gen 1, you might not like all the changes they put in here because you like Gen 1 the way it was. And if you like newer Pokemon games, you won't like all the things they don't include in here, like hold items, like Pokemon abilities, like a lot of that stuff is not in here. And so I feel like this is pretty much the game you get if you got a Switch. Maybe you played some Pokemon Go, maybe you haven't, maybe you just haven't really played a Pokemon game, and you want to get into the series, and you want a game that's simpler, but you don't want a game that's real old. This is a nice, simpler, modern take on the series, but because of it, because it is that, again, I can't really say that it's worth $60. If you can get it for 30, then that's a good deal. That's a good value game right there. Shoot for that. And I'll end this on a nice little tip. If you want to play it on your TV, but you don't want to use the Joy-Con by itself because it's kind of small and not that comfortable to do that by itself. You still want the substantial feel of a controller when you're playing on your TV. Just take your nice little Switch grip that comes with your Switch and just put the one Joy-Con in it, and then you can play. You do like this. Whenever you want to throw the Pokeball, you just kind of go like that. And I played most of it like this because it was just more comfortable because it was like holding a controller, and not just the Joy-Con. And if you want to do the false co-op thing, just throw another one in there and you can pretend you're two people. But if you don't want to do that, then don't put one there because you'll accidentally bump it and then it'll turn on and then it'll be co-op and you'll have to turn it off again. But that's my tip. Leave a comment if you like my tip. Be like, hey, that's a good tip. If you hated it, leave a comment that says like, that's not so good of a tip. What do you guys think of Let's Go and Pokemon Go? Did you go Let's Go Eevee or Let's Go Pikachu? What are your thoughts? Leave it in the comments. Look at me, I am a sea of props. Shirt, hat, props, and me. That's how you fucking do it. Hello, and welcome to Real Person Reviews. I'm Sam, and I'm a real person, and today I want to talk to you about Pokemon Picross for the Nintendo 3DS. Actually, no, I don't. Let's restart. Well, let's just talk about a different one. I didn't hit start on my other thing anyway, so this is good. We'll edit this part out, maybe. Yeah, let's go. I'm gonna get the hat. I'm getting the hat. Fuck you, I'm getting the hat.